On this week's Travel Win podcast, I'm blessed to have comedian William Lee Martin on my podcast. William Lee Martin's been a stand-up comic for 20 plus years. He had his own 1-hour special on CMT called Cowboy Bill Martin, Let the Laughter Roll. That special had over 1 million viewers, and he took that and rolled it right into teaming up with Chad Prather on the Kings of Cowtown tour. More importantly, William Lee Martin is a married man and a father of 5 children. Just over a year ago, William Lee Martin started a web blog called Living in the Middle Report. It's an interesting look at living in the middle of the country, middle age, middle America, and he really brings in some comedy as well as some insight into the actual history of the country. Another big part of William Lee Martin's life is Cowboys Who Care Foundation. He and his wife started a foundation to help children with cancer and other life-threatening diseases by giving them cowboy hats and providing them a little bit of normalcy in their otherwise upside-down life. You can find out what William Lee Martin's up to on Facebook at comedian William Lee Martin or cowboybill.com. Both those sites will have his upcoming tour stops. He has a California tour coming up at the end of September, and he'll also be at the NFR in Las Vegas the first 2 weeks of December at Brad Garrett's Comedy Club. For more information on the Cowboys Who Care Foundation, go to cowboyswhocare.org. It's a great organization, and here's my time with William Lee Martin.
Hey, on my Travel Wins podcast today is comedian William Lee Martin. I guess it's a.k.a. Cowboy Bill now?
No, it was AKA Cowboy Bill, and now it's still William Lee Martin. Actually, the name was actually given to me. The name Cowboy Bill was given to me by my grandfather on day one. His name is William Lee. My name is William Lee. He didn't want me to be called Little Bill like he was. He was 6'5". He said call him Cowboy Bill. He gave me the name. I was actually named after Cowboy Bill Watts, the old wrestler back in the 50s. That's where that name came from.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
How you been?
Man, I've been good. I've really been blessed. You know, it's been a whirlwind, and I've been on a cruise ship for the last 3 days and ready to get off that thing and head home. But we still got 2 more days on here, and then we'll fly home from Jamaica, I think, on Tuesday.
I'd like to say that's a rough life, but...
Well, it's not as glamorous as you think. You know, I fly to an island, and I join the ship halfway through a cruise, and then I take the cruise with them into, like, Galveston, like I am now, and then we'll take it out for 2 more days and at sea, and then I'll fly back home from another island. So,
you know, and that's really why I started the podcast called Travel Wins, because, you know, I'm a traveling salesman, and everyone's like, oh, you're so lucky you get to see all these places and all that. And I'm like, well, yes and no.
And no. And a lot of no.
Well, I mean, you know, for example, you're a stand-up comedian, you're a video blogger, you're a writer. More importantly, you're a husband and a father. So that's a lot of hats to be juggling.
Well, it makes it tough to communicate with the family, especially on the cruise ship, because, you know, you're out in the middle of the ocean. And so that's the toughest part of that job.
I was going to ask you, what's the hardest part about the work-life balance for you?
Being away from home, you know, missing the other day, my grandson, I got 4 grandsons, just got a new one this last Sunday, and I was blessed to be home for that thing, the delivery and everything else. And but my oldest grandson's 5, and he caught his first fish the other day, and it just tore me apart.
Yep.
You know, so but fortunately now, you know, it's a lot different than when I started 22 years ago, because now, thank goodness for FaceTime and Facebook and phones and being able to communicate that way. So at least I get to see folks and talk to folks, where 22 years ago, you know, you had
you were just calling
change, and you just calling in, you know.
I always tell my daughters, you know, my daughter went over to Europe for a schooling for a summer break, for a summer semester. And, you know, we were FaceTiming at night. And I'm like, you know, this is inconceivable from back in my day.
Right.
You know, I'm literally talking to you live, looking at your face, and you're in London, and I'm in California. How's that work?
You know, we might not have got the flying cars that we were promised, but this is a technology that I do dig quite a bit. But it's funny, the cruise ship, I just put a picture of the cabin that Carnival put me on this week, and I told my dad I was living in a closet, and he goes, oh, well, don't come out of it.
It's too late for you, William. And don't tell Michelle.
Yeah.
Well, I love hearing about the overnight success stories, but I guess I'll talk to you instead.
Yeah, exactly. 22 years overnight success story. You know, we had our first 1 hour television special, I guess, in 2016, and you know, it's been a heck of a ride. We just taped 2 more 1 hour specials that are being shopped and finished, and we think we've got a network that picked them up, but we can't make the announcement yet. But one is a Christmas special, which I'm very excited about, because there's not one comedian that has out a true 1 hour stand-up Christmas special. So we'll be the first.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you know when you're going to be able to release that info?
Hopefully real soon. You know, it's
okay.
We're hoping that it's going to air between November and January the 2nd is the plan. And you know, it's called the Nutcracker. And,
of course.
It's based on my vasectomy. And
no comment.
No comment. That happened during Christmas time, but there's a lot of Christmas material in it and everything else, and we're just really excited because nobody's ever released one like that. And if it all comes to plan, then we'll be not only in the stand-up comedian slot where they go and get it on, you know, either a Netflix or a Showtime or one of those kind of folks, but it'll also be on the holiday tab, which is very exciting because no other stand-up comedy would be on that thing.
Yeah, I was going to say that kind of puts you in a unique spot, which is great.
Yeah, you know, anytime you can dig out a niche for yourself in any business, you know, and find not only where the supply is low and the demand is high. So, as I even said in the special, you know, every year we all gather around to watch It's a Wonderful Life or Rudolph or Die Hard. Die Hard's a Christmas movie. So maybe people will gather around and watch, you know, William Lee Martin and the Nutcracker every year.
Well, that would be awesome. And it'd be nice you could be able to push that during NFR too.
Absolutely. And we'll be back for NFR again. We'll be back at the MGM at Brad Garrett's Comedy Club for my 8th year.
I promise you I'm going to hit it this year. You know, the one year I bought the ticket. And then
my
boss
said,
ticket. Yeah, I bought the ticket. You offered. And I was like, no, it's okay. I bought a ticket, and my boss that night said, hey, guess what we're doing tonight? We're rearranging the booth. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, but, you know, as long as you bought the ticket, I still got the money. So I appreciate it. I missed you, but I needed the money anyway. So thank you, pal.
You betcha. I'll get you this year, though. I will for sure get you this year.
Well, I tell you just let me know, and I'm going to give you the ticket this time. You come over and see me, and don't buy anything. You already bought it once and didn't see it.
And then maybe the second time I can buy a ticket.
There you go.
Hey, so I was going to ask you, you write, you act, you produce a successful web blog called Living in the Middle Report. How's that going for you?
You know, it's really well. You know, it used to be called the Cosmopolitan Report. And I'd take an article from Cosmo, and I started it in 2000. I did it for the radio, you know, before Facebook was even around. And I would take an article from Cosmo and do a man slant to it. But, you know, now I'm older, and it just didn't fit. Besides, I'm middle age. I live in the middle of the city, middle of the country, middle of the state, and pretty middle of the road when it comes to a lot of the stuff that's going on in the country. You know, I can agree with some things and not with others. I do think that about 10% of the country's on that far, far right, and 10% of the country's on the far, far left, and 80% of us are stuck in the middle, wishing the other 20% would shut up so we can all get on with our own lives.
My daughter went to college in near Baltimore, Maryland, and which is the heart of, I mean, it's 95% Democrat there. And she called me up the day after the election, was freaked out, and I said, you know what, I've been through a lot of these. 99% of the people woke up today and went to work.
Right. I did a Living in the Middle talking about who was the worst president, Trump, Obama, or maybe somebody else. Because, in America, we don't really study or even know history. We had a president that was so bad that his party completely disavowed him during his presidency. His entire cabinet except one guy resigned. And when he died, the president at the time wouldn't even lower the flags to half-mast. And that president was John Tyler, and the president that wouldn't lower the flags was Abraham Lincoln.
and there just wasn't social media back then.
There just wasn't. You know, we our only bachelor president lived with a senator named William Rufus King. He lived with him for 10 years, and after he left for France, that president wrote in his journal that he was left to wooing men, and he wasn't very good at it. Benjamin Harris. You know, there's all kinds of history of what this country survived, and that's what folks need to realize, that it's we the people, not we the president. And if this country falls apart in the next 50 years, it won't be because of those two guys. It'll be because we tore each other apart through social media.
Yeah. It can bring you together and it can tear you apart.
Yeah, you know, when Houston got hit with a hurricane in Dallas and Fort Worth, which is a 4-hour drive, 280 miles, there was a panic that went through Facebook that there wasn't going to be any gas, and people literally were in lines for 8 hours to get gas for the weekend. It's a scary time.
Yeah.
It's a Pandora's box that we've opened.
Yeah, you know, it seems like, and the only people that get the press are the extreme right and the extreme left.
Right. Yeah. Well, thanks. So maybe I made a bad choice by going in the middle.
Well, no, you know, but I think the middle's where it's at, though. I mean, you know, I just think it's so interesting that the left keeps going after Trump, but the problem they have is, you know, those California and New York aren't the states that need to get Trump supporters. If they want to change it, it's got to be Iowa, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Ohio, all the people in the middle.
Yeah, it really is that the middle part of the country that's kept this country churning, you know, all these years and everything else. And I just think that the moment that we quit listening and started shouting at each other, I think that's when we really found ourselves in trouble.
Well, as a traveling stand-up comedian, you don't just do Carnival Cruises. I know you've got a tour coming up out here in California.
Yeah, I tour with a guy named Alex Ramundo on some of the dates. We do a deal called the Tex-Mex Comedy Tour. And Alex is from the Latin Kings of Comedy. And he been on Showtime a couple of times with his own special, Red Mexican and Hispanic. And he's a funny cat. And he and I have been friends for all 22 years of my comedy career. And we started at the same club, about 5 years difference. And the same place that Ron White started at, place in Arlington, Texas. And, one year we just decided that we, I guess 2 years ago, we were like, everybody's just it seemed like nobody can get along, especially, Mexicans and Texicans, because that's what I am. I'm a fifth generation Texican.
Yeah.
And he's like, why don't we go out and do some dates together? And I said, that sounds perfect. So we go out and we both do 40 minutes apiece, and then we do an encore that's supposed to be 20 minutes, but it usually lasts about 45, 50 minutes.
Yeah. How is it traveling on the road like that versus, on having the cruise set up?
Well, the give and take is on the cruises, I don't have to worry about filling a room. Carnival, let's face it, they're on the boat and they ain't got anywhere else to go.
It is a stuck crowd, my friend.
Yeah, so it's easier in that aspect, but there's something beautiful about working at theater, especially some of these older theaters that have been around since vaudeville days. And I did a theater in Greenville, Texas, where the posters are still in the back, where the Marx Brothers were there, and Houdini was there. And, it's just, there's a cool feeling about being in show business and still being around all those kind of folks.
Yeah. I aged myself earlier this week. I was talking about James Dean, and the girl that works for us is like, "Who's that?"
Wow.
I'm like, "No, come on, James Dean, Rebel Without a Cause, Giant."
Yeah, well now they're millennials without a clue.
Like,
I just wrote that.
You're gonna have to use it. Wow,
yeah,
man.
And I know that feeling, but I don't know what age group you're in, but I finally got to that early 50s age. Just my wife is 50, and I'm 49 in 18 months.
You, my friend, we are about the exact same age then. I just hit 51 in June, so.
Well, I've now lived to a point where I realize that so much of what we think is, the kids being all different. They're really not. I mean, the first day of school is a little bit different in the fact that the kids have a parent-teacher night, meet the teacher night. We didn't have that. I'm pretty sure my dad only knew vaguely where my school was, but had no idea where my classroom was or who my teacher was.
I think my dad just said that's the thing your mom has to go to.
Sometimes you worry about the kids, but I've got 5 kids, and they've all seemed to have done well for themselves. My oldest daughter's actually 31. She's got a master's degree, and then my son's got a degree from Stephen F. Austin there in Nacogdoches. The next daughter's got a degree from Oklahoma State, and so does the next one. And then the last one doesn't have a degree because she's in the 8th grade.
But she's getting there.
She better. Got a lot of
I
pressure on her.
Hey, man, both of my daughters graduated college a year ago. It was great and yet scary at the same time.
It is, but you got to feel like eventually the smarts will win out somewhere, and you hope so anyway.
Exactly. Well, I always tell my daughters, it's like, I know they have to go through a crisis, and it's just unfortunate that they have to go through some of the same ones I went through, and I try and guide them to the bridge that goes over the ravine, but sometimes they just want to go up to the edge still.
Yeah, and that's part of it. My son, I think it's funny you bring that up. They just had a baby this last week.
Uh-huh.
And he called me up and he goes, Dad, for 3 days they treated me and my wife and our baby like they were just one of their own. And then at the end of the 3 days, Dad, they set us at the curb at the hospital and just left us there.
Yep.
Said, well, welcome to parenthood.
I was just talking about this. It's funny you said that because this week I was talking about one of the girls that we work with is pregnant. She's 7 months pregnant. And I said, I remember coming home with my first daughter, and we were in our early 20s, and it was like we got home and went, now what?
Now what? Didn't come with instructions or nothing.
I got this living, breathing thing, and that was pre-internet. That was pre-Google. It was like, what do we do now?
You had supposed to be reading all the books. I didn't read any of them.
Well, it goes back to that's what your wife's supposed to be doing.
Well, exactly. I love my friends who go, my dogs are my babies. All right, well, try to put a kid in a kennel and see if you don't get arrested.
Yeah. I was we have a 3-year-old French bulldog, and my wife treats him like a puppy, like a baby, and I'm like, no. See, I can put him in the crate and go wash my car. Right. We can crate him up and go watch a movie.
Absolutely.
It doesn't happen when you have a baby.
Well, it's been great. We've got the 5 kids, and we're not good Catholic. We're just really bad Methodists.
And then some.
So my wife is truly the rock in that family, though. I'll tell you a true story. Now I got 4 girls and 1 boy, and the girl is actually the youngest girl is actually 13, and so we're going through some of that body image stuff, right?
Yep.
And which is if you've never experienced it, then you're blessed. But so I came home the other day and I heard them talking, and my daughter goes, "Well, I don't even like my eyes; they're just so big." And she has, and they're exactly my eyes, you know. And I'm like, "Dear Lord, I'm gonna get blamed for this for sure."
Oh yeah.
And my wife goes, "Oh, baby, your eyes aren't too big. God made your eyes that big." And it made her feel good, and it made my wife feel good, it made me feel real good because I wasn't going to get blamed for this thing, you know. And about 6 hours later, we're going to go to a charity benefit. My wife walks out of the bathroom. She goes, "This dress makes me look big." And I go, "Oh, honey, that dress don't make you look big. God made you big."
and how did she take it?
I went to the benefit by myself, buddy. Actually, I took God with me. We had a good time, you know.
There you go. Now, your wife is the true rock star of the group.
She really is. You know, Michelle with one L, as I call her. She doesn't brag even about her name. So, but she's amazing. Everybody loves Michelle. I always said we'd never get divorced, but if we ever did, nobody would ever go, "Oh my goodness, Bill, what happened?" They would look at me and go, "What did you do?"
Yeah, exactly. What did you do this time, my friend?
Yeah, she's an amazing person, and you know, and I tell young comics, you talk about trying to travel and everything else. I tell young comics, and I'm sure this applies to even traveling folks like yourself. There's two kinds of women to get involved with in show business. There's Johnny Cash's first wife and Johnny Cash's second wife, and you better get you a June Carter.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and for me, you know, I'm remarried, and so my wife she knew what she was getting into.
Right.
You know, as far as
you got you a June Carter.
Yeah. And that is such a big, you know, as long as, I think if you were to become, you know, 20 years later, you had an office job and your wife liked that and all of a sudden you said you want to become a comic and you were going to be traveling 100, 150, 200 days a year, that could create some problems.
Yeah, and it really takes that support from home, especially for me. If she, you know, today she was talking me off the ledge just because of you know, we got 2 sea days. It doesn't sounds like it'd be a great time to be on a cruise ship, but after 7 years of taking them, there's nowhere to really go hide.
Yeah,
you know, and 3 football fields sounds like a long distance until you're on there for 2.5 days. But you know, because I'm not going to go to the hairy chest contest, and I'm certainly not going to swim in a pool that nobody gets out to go pee.
Yeah. But
So,
I think that's part of it. You know, a lot of people think, "Oh my God, it'd be great to be on the road and all that." You know, and I do the same thing. I'm on the road about 130, 150 days a year, and you know, I've been to Salinas 4 times a year for 9 years now. You know, I've been to Bakersfield, I've been to Visalia, I've been down to Calexico, and I have some good stops, but it's still work. You know, I'm still
and there's some beautiful parts of the world, and I mean, I've literally seen the world telling jokes. I've had the privilege of touring overseas for our troops. You know, our side, not their side.
Yeah, okay.
And you know, I've seen all the Middle East, and I've seen Asia, and I've seen things that you know, my grandparents wouldn't even dreamed of being able to do. So I feel very, very, very blessed. Let me just say that. It's but it does take, like every other job, it is a job. So it takes, you know, some hard work and dedication, and then it really helps to have somebody at home keeping the fires burning.
Yeah, I hear you on that one. What's the best place you've ever been to? Just on a work trip.
On a work trip, okay. So let's clarify that. On a work trip, I do love Vegas during the National Finals Rodeo Week. It's probably one of my favorites, period. You know, Vegas is, for me, a 3-day town. But that run is an 8-day run for me. And by the time I get home, I don't want to go back to Vegas for a year. And then about October, I start getting the itch. And then, you know, that first 2 weeks of December are now slid back to second, third week now that they've changed the schedule. But then I'm ready to go again. But by the time it's over, I'm ready to be back home again. So that's probably my favorite road trip. Period.
See, I tell people, I have to go to Vegas to work the rodeo, and they're like, oh, you're so lucky, you get paid to go to Vegas. I'm like, 16 days, no days off.
Yeah.
We do 4 days of setup, we do a 10-day show, and then 2 days of teardown, and I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go home.
Yeah, it's a long week. As far as vacation, my wife and I went to Europe this year, and she called it a trip of a lifetime. And I said I'd only go if I could take my best friend, Dr. Andy Hoover, and his wife, so they can enjoy my misery as well. And because when you live out of a suitcase, the last thing you want to do is go live out of a suitcase for vacation.
I hear you, my brother.
And
I hear you.
I went kicking and screaming and came home kicking and screaming, man. I had just an amazing time in Europe. We started out in Madrid, Spain, and then went to Barcelona and stayed there for 2 nights, and then jumped on a cruise ship that I wasn't working.
Yeah.
And we go to Italy, and we went to Rome, and we went to Sicily, and we went to Florence, and then went to Marseille, France, and then went back to Barcelona and went up the coast for 2 hours and spent 2 nights in a little villa right on the Mediterranean. And wow, what a trip.
Now I'm just getting jealous.
Well, and that's the beauty of being with the Carnival family, is that I was able to get on there for little nothing. Then I had 1 billion frequent flyer miles because I'm constantly in a plane. And so the trip cost us little nothing. And it was truly a trip of a lifetime. I'm ready to go back there again. And I don't know how the Europeans feel about Americans. Some of them don't like us, but they love Texans. And my best friend, who can speak Spanish fluently, kept trying to drag out his Spanish. And I said, dude, just drag out your accent and we'll get everything. And boy, the more I drug out this accent, the more we got free stuff everywhere. Food, and we love Texas, and here's where you ought to go, and this is the greatest place to go. And people just opened up their arms and their hearts, and it was amazing. It truly was amazing.
Well, that sounds like a fun trip. It like you said, it's always different. You weren't thinking about having to do a gig or this coming up, and you got to turn the brain off and just enjoy it, right?
Yeah, and sat out on the balcony, and I tell my kids all the time that sometimes the thing that you got to do most of all for yourself, whether or not you're traveling, whether or not you're working, is you got to get quiet every once in a while. You got to turn off the phone, you got to turn off the TV, all the distractions, and you got to get quiet and just listen every once in a while, and that helps recharge your heart as much as anything.
Yeah, it's interesting you say, because I'll do that. I drive quite a bit for my territory, and in California, some drives aren't so fun. But once I get out of the metropolitan areas and I drive through Central California or the coast, there's times when I'll just turn the radio off, roll the windows down, and just drive for an hour and a half.
It's amazing what happens sometimes when you get still.
Yeah. I think people that travel kind of need that too.
Yeah,
because, it's always, for me, I can tell you right now, like next week I'm here, Tuesday I'm here, Wednesday I got to pick up my boss, Thursday I got meetings, Friday, and then next week I'm going to Visalia and I'm going up here. That's always running through my brain.
Well, that's kind of where I found stand-up comedy altogether. It was I wrote advertising for 9 years out of college, and hated every minute of it. I don't know if it's because I grew up on a farm, and now I'm in a little cubicle, or maybe I didn't work well with others. I know that second one was on every evaluation I've ever had.
Exactly.
But I was just miserable, but I was still doing it, and I thought I was going to be the next, and you're going to understand the reference. A lot of young people listening to this won't, but I thought I was going to be the next Darren Stevens of all people.
Okay.
I thought I'd be coming up with a wacky campaign every week, and instead, we spent countless hours in meetings about meetings, and 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 then having a meeting with a client and wanting to change the font of the thing that said men and women to the men and women's room of their retail establishment and that kind of stuff. So, but I hated every minute of it. But we got sold one day to a company out of Atlanta, and I was in Fort Worth, and so 26 employees gotten fired on a Monday, unceremoniously, no fault of our own.
Yep.
And I called everybody to tell them that I got fired, and I was amazed on how many people put me on hold. Worst day of my life, and nobody really wanted to talk about it, except my grandmother. She said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I don't know." And she said, "Go home and look in the mirror and ask yourself, are you happy? Just start out with that." She said, "You're almost 30 years old, and I never see you smile." And like I said, I did not, though. I went home and I stayed in the fetal position for 5.5 months. Would have been 6, but unemployment ran out in 5.5.
You got as much as you could out of it.
All I could out of it. And there was no extensions back then.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
True story, the UPS driver comes next door to deliver a package next door. Now, my neighbors were gone, granted, but I went next door to tell him that they were gone. I was there to pick the package, but I had a different plan, too. I was going to tell him my sad story, right? Because when you throw in a pity party, everybody's invited, even the guy in the ugly brown shorts.
That's right.
And I told him I was fired, told him I didn't know I was going to make ends meet, and didn't know what I was going to do with my life. And he looked at me like, "Good, that's my last box I'll bring out here, dude." I hate to tell you this, people don't care that you got problems sometimes, and they're happy that you do often.
Yeah.
And I went home that day, and I looked in the mirror, and I asked myself, am I happy? And I turned off the phone, the television, just what we were talking about, and I had a 4-hour conversation, what I believe is God that day. And I called my grandmother 4 hours later, and I said, Mama, since I was 5 years old, singing the old rugged cross all by myself in the First Evangelical Methodist Church, I knew I wanted to be on stage and television, radio, and print. She said, go for it. And I said, what if I lose the house? She said, buy you another one, boy.
Yeah.
She said, I don't want you to be 30 or 50 or 80 and go to the would have, could have, or should have. And this from a woman that found out that she had a tumor on her lung about the size of my fist and dying of lung cancer. My very best friend.
Yeah,
that's when I knew, man. Yeah.
She said it to you straight. I think, the whole thing with the age and millennials and all that is, in the last 10 years, we haven't had a economic downturn. For me, I've been through 3 of them.
Right.
And the last one for me, similar story. I was in commercial real estate, and I was going to the office, and I had just had my daughter in some, elementary school day parade or whatever. And so I go into the office a little late, and I'm starting to go up the elevator, and the president of the company's coming down, and he's on the phone. He goes, have you heard? And I go, no. He goes, well, go up in the conference room. So we go up in the conference room. Everyone's sitting there like, what the hell's going on? And I go in there, and our company was just sold for $4 billion.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, okay.
So what does that mean for us?
What do we do now,
Yeah.
And it was the same thing. And I think that's just, there's no way you can describe that. Like I try and tell my kids that, and they're like, yeah. Oh, all right, old man.
Well, it's funny that you say that because my son, he was running my tour for a while and doing a great job with it. And I mean, he did sound, lights, the meet and greet, everything else, and really coordinated everything. And he called me up and he said, Dad, I really, really want to go into real estate. And I said, it's your life, man. I want you to do what you do.
Yeah.
And, sometimes when we worry about millennials, it's because they haven't had children of their own yet. And that it changes you quick because he called me and he goes, I'm going to be a different kind of real estate dad. I'm going to show them 3 houses. And if they want to see more than that, then we're going to have a sit down and we're going to try to figure out what their needs are. So I'm not running around all over God's creation trying to figure out what house they want. And I'm not going to answer the phone after 6 p.m. I'm going to keep that strict kind of thing. And I'm not going to show houses on Sunday. And then he heard the 2 magic words that changed his entire philosophy, and that was, I'm pregnant.
Yeah.
And now he'll meet him at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Do whatever I have to.
Yeah, I'll do whatever it takes. to provide for, my family. And that's what I tell people all the time. Sometimes when you worry about these kids so much, you just got to wait for them to have kids of their own, and then hopefully you've done enough that you don't have generations of idiots.
And I honestly, I think we'll be fine. I mean, it's interesting because, my daughters are 23 and turned 25. They both got jobs. They've seen some of the good and some of the bad already of working, and bad bosses and managers. It just, it's almost like we're trying to handhold them so much and try to get them to avoid the negative parts. But that's you kind of need that.
Yeah, well, I saw a quote the other day from Robin Williams. It said, a broken heart, an empty wallet, and one other empty, and can make the largest differences in your life.
Yeah.
And it truly can. I mean, it's funny because we worry, and I, as a father and a grandfather now, I worry about, our kids like everybody else does. And are they too soft and all those kind of things. And then the other day, I started watching the entire season of All in the Family that started in 1974.
Oh, wow. That wouldn't be allowed on TV now.
It wouldn't, but if you watch it, other than the things that Archie says, that are derogatory, but the meat of the stories are still apply. So I think the more that we think things are different, I think things are truly still just the same. I think kids, when you're 18, 19, 20 years old, you think you have an idealistic view of what the world is or should be, and then you realize after a while that you can change what you can change, but when it comes down to it, you just got to try to find your own happiness and your own security and your own safety. So I think things are more the same than I think what we give it credit for.
But I agree with you on the All in the Family part. Growing up, my dad wasn't the racist part of it, but he was. I always told my dad was Carroll O'Connor. Just stern, self-opinionated. Here's how I feel. If you don't like it, you can leave.
Right, and believed in hard work. That's still something that that. The first episode, I mean, when you watch that, he's making a point that, this country still opens up to those who want to get out and work hard and hustle for it.
Yeah, and going back, you go back into the early 70s, and you had Nixon, Watergate, and politics never be the same, and you had the Clinton scandal. I mean, it's just that the millennial group hasn't experienced that, and that's why I think they're freaking out over the Trump stuff.
Well, it's we go back to that Living in the Middle report. I did a report on 1968 versus 2018. That's pretty interesting. The millennials fell down over Trump and everything else. You got to remember, we had a president assassinated in 63, but in 68, his brother was killed. Martin Luther King was killed. We were in the middle of the Vietnam War that nobody wanted to be in. We were falling apart economically, and we were shredding each other apart at the seams with shootings in colleges and all kinds of stuff. So is it really different than 1968? I mean, even the clothes came back into style.
My wife keeps asking me when the leisure shoots are going to come back for men. I'm like, never.
I hope so. I still have two, a powder blue and a brown.
You have to wear those at NFR, my friend.
No, I don't have them. They wouldn't fit anyway, man. I weighed 149 pounds back then.
No starch jeans. You got to wear the leisure suit.
I will. Don't think I won't. Think I won't.
I'm going to find out what night I'm going to watch you, and you better be wearing it.
Maybe I could start a brand new trend.
God, please don't. Please don't, because we watched. Awesome. We were watching the old Love Boat episodes, and from 1977, I think is when they started. And it was the spread open collar, the collar over the
absolutely.
Lapel. And I'm like, no one needs to see those gray hairs. Come on, that cannot come back.
That's awesome.
So, hey, what advice would you give other comedians or people that travel? I mean, you mentioned a little bit, but if you were talking to a comedian today, coming up and coming, just getting started, and they go, "Hey, William, what do I need to look out for? What would you say to them?
The pitfalls, the booze. One night George Jones put his arms around me. I was out on tour with George Jones, and the late great Possum, and he and I became really close because I would open the show, and then his band would sing 3 songs, so I got 15 minutes of one-on-one time with me and George Jones backstage every night for about, I don't know, I guess I did about 55 dates with him. So we became close friends, and he was a mentor like to me, and I called him Daddy, and he called me Cowboy Bob as a joke to the band. But one night he put his arm around me, and he goes, boy, you stay away from the booze and the women, you're going to go a long way in this business. I go, Daddy, that's why I got into this business. And he goes, he hugs me, and he goes, me too, don't tell Nancy. And that's the whole thing. You got to be careful with that whole pitfall. When you're traveling on the road, those rules, the hotel every night, so there's a bar open every night, and so those things can, turn in at first from fun to a crutch and to the reason why you fall. I've seen a lot of people fail out here because of extracurricular activities.
Yeah. Same in my world.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see it all the time, suddenly they think it's going to be okay, and then suddenly 1 turns into 4, and 4 turns into 2 days, and then 2 days turns into trying to explain to your boss why your expense report is so padded.
Well, for us, I try and tell the young guys and girls that go to NFR for the first or second time that are in their early to mid-20s, like, just remember one thing. It's a work trip.
Yeah.
I go, you're going to go out and have fun, but the president's aunt might be right next to you, and you don't know it, and you start mouthing off. I've seen people get fired for things that were said not even around work.
Me too. Me too. It's the same thing I tell I would tell somebody starting out the same thing I tell all my kids: make good decisions.
Yeah,
it's time to make good choices. And I haven't always done that, and I paid for it in certain venues and gigs, and as all of us have, and tried to learn my lesson. And I'm just in a different place these days in my life too. So.
Well, yeah, and that's the. I don't mind. Like, a lot of people say, "Oh, I wish I could go back to be 20." I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm good with what I got. My kids are healthy. They're working. Graduated. Wife's happy. I'm good. Healthy. There was some uncertainty with that. All those statements, a couple of years ago. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we all go through that, and but now, now that I'm in a real good place, and I have, Michelle always has been that kind of rock, and it really helps me be more creative when I'm not having to worry about what's going on at home, or if she's worried about what's going on the road. I mean, we both have, really a lot of trust in each other. I talk about it all the time, the fact that, I know a lot of guys that have to call in every night, and my wife would soon not me call her at 2:00 in the morning. She's got a real job of her own.
Yeah.
Although I did call her the other night and just lit up like Cooter Brown and called her and go, "Hey, baby, are you naked?" She goes, "Who is this?" I said, "It's your husband." She goes, "No, my husband's not stupid enough to call me at 3:00 in the morning." I said, "Oh, yes, he is."
How'd that turn out?
Well, now I just drunk text message her. That's what I do. She doesn't think I'm a good. She doesn't think I drink anymore on the road. She just thinks I'm a crappy speller.
The autocorrect's not always working.
It's not always working at 3 a.m. Apparently, it's just as drunk as I was.
I have that same talk with the people I work with. A couple of times, the young kids always want to put it out on social media.
Yeah.
I go, you got to understand, people my age, we did the exact same stupid shit you're doing right now. But there's no proof of it.
Right. It would take at least 4 days to get that picture developed at CVS.
Well, and would you really go to Thrifty's with some of those pictures? Hell no.
No. And by the time you got them back and you sobered up, you went, what was I thinking there?
Yeah, let's get rid of that one. Where's that negative at? You know, and
well,
so...
That just goes back to what we were talking about earlier, you know, making those good choices when you're on the road. That's what I tell young people who wanted to get in any one of our businesses.
Yeah. Anybody that travels, I think, you know, it's so interesting for me to see the mid-20s, 25, 26. We have some sales reps, and, you know, they're Snapchatting this and that, and I'm like, man, you don't want to be doing that.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
Because your friends aren't the only ones that get to say, oh, no, I'm on private. And I go, there's no such thing.
No, not on social media. I mean, Phil Mickelson got on Twitter the other day, and he was so proud of it. I'm like, have you seen what Twitter's done to people's career?
Yeah. Oh, you can get in trouble just for liking posts now. There was a guy he just got fired because he liked a post.
Wow.
Didn't make a comment. Didn't make the post. Just hit the thumbs up button. He got fired.
Well, our lives are not as private as they once were, but you just have to try to figure out what you want out of life then. Because if you want to live out there, out in public, you know, you can, or you can, you know, I still kind of keep everything relatively private on what's really private and what's really important to my life. And so you know, you just have to make those decisions.
Oh, can you imagine Richard Pryor being in the swing of things now with what he was doing back in the day that no one reported on?
Oh, no. I mean, and we look at our presidents. Could you imagine if Twitter was following any of those cats back then? You know,
I mean, JFK was a great guy, but he wasn't. He had more mistresses than Clinton.
Yeah, well, we had another president that not only had an affair with his wife's best friend, he also fathered a child, which he denied his whole life. But in 2005, because of DNA testing caught up, we found out, Warren G. Harding, you are the baby daddy.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, nobody talks about it.
Yeah.
Because we just don't understand history.
Yeah. Well, that's your job, my friend.
Well, I'm trying.
Get out there, share history. Hey, before I let you go, I wanted, I don't know if you're still doing it, but I know you and Michelle really did a great job with Cowboys Who Care Foundation.
Yeah, we're thank you for bringing it up. For those who don't know, Cowboys Who Care is started about 7 years ago with a young lady named Ashley Miller. Her parents were big fans of mine and asked me to put my name on a golf tournament to raise some money for her because she had a rare form of cancer. She was about 12 years old, and so I was happy to do that for her there in Salina, Texas. And then I got to know her and her mom and dad, and her cancer goes into remission, and it came back with a vengeance, and she lost her battle with cancer in June of 2011. Since then, I tried to get myself involved with pediatric cancer because I have 5 amazingly healthy kids, you know, and now 4 amazingly healthy grandsons, and I knew I wanted to help and didn't know how. And one day I just Googled kids with cancer images, kind of opened it up to the universe, right? And had all these big, bright, beautiful faces, beautiful smiles, and bald heads. And in the mirror, I could see my cowboy hat. And that's when it hit me. Well, these kids need cowboy hats. What 7-year-old wants to wear a wig, but what 7-year-old wouldn't want to wear a cowboy hat? So my wife and I formed Cowboys Who Care Foundation, and a nonprofit organization, a 501c3, and we started delivering cowboy hats about 6.5 years ago. And in 6.5 years now, we've given away a little over 8,000 brand new Resistol cowboy hats to boys and girls across the country. And
amazing.
It's been we've got visits coming up in Fort Worth and Dallas, and then obviously we'll be back in Vegas on that Wednesday, December 12th, back at Sunrise Hospital delivering for them again. And we since then we brought on Pete Carr and Pete Carr Rodeo. Pete, if you don't know, is the largest livestock provider of the NFR. And Pete came on board a year and a half ago and has really brought us on in front of the PRCA and the NFR. And so we're really making huge strides with those folks to be part of it. And we just hired a PR firm and an events coordinator for the thing because we're really expanding the program to start working with folks like St. Jude and Children's Miracle Network, and the program is really starting to really just expand, and I can't tell you how happy I am that we're being able to really reach out through that kind of a ministry and talk to folks, and sometimes the kids really dig it, and then sometimes the person that enjoys it the most is mom and dad, who get to see their kids be just having fun for a brief moment. So we're still growing, and we need folks to get involved with us. So if you get a chance, go to our website, cowboyswhocare.org, cowboyswhocare.org, and then you can find us on Facebook as well. And
I'll make sure I put that in my link too.
That's terrific. And the program's really growing.
And you ever look back and when you're in your wonderful closet and think, if you would have stuck in advertising, look at all the things that's happened to you since. The places you got to see, travel to, the troops, the Cowboys Who Care Foundation, all because you got fired.
No, brother, but I will tell you, all weekend long, I've been kind of throwing a pity party. I'm going to throw some non-cool stuff, because I'm going to tell you the truth of this. I've been throwing a little pity party because of that closet and the schedule and the travel, and we decided to make this phone call on a Sunday, right?
Correct.
I'd even said a prayer last night before I went to bed. I'm like, God, you gotta tell me why I'm going through this stuff. And then suddenly I'm talking to you, and you tell me why I'm going through this stuff. So there is an answer to a prayer if you just shut up and listen sometimes. So I appreciate that, man. I didn't think I'd get this out of this conversation, and you're exactly right. If I wouldn't be in that little closet right now, I wouldn't be able to do the things that we've done and touch the lives that we've touched. And sometimes just making people laugh. There's something beautiful about that, especially in a world that's as screwed up as this one is.
Well, I have a friend who's a drummer in a band, and their band went through some serious hardships. Lost his lead singer, got a new lead singer. The new lead singer quit mid-tour across the country. And I said, you know what, though? You get to make music, and you're reaching people. And go ahead.
How did Eddie Van Halen take that news?
Wasn't that big of a band, but
they were on,
they were on Ozfest. They were touring with Linkin Park and doing a whole bunch of big things, and things happen. And I said, but you've reached so many people. And you've made their day better. They have great memories while they're listening to a song or music. That's the beauty of sharing.
I appreciate it. You opened my eyes to some of the things that's going on in my life too, and I know you didn't think that's what we'd get out of it too. But man, that's what a blessing this was. So I appreciate it, man. I really do.
Hey, I can't thank you enough. I know Sundays are rough, and we're trying. I didn't think of this through. I was like, hey, I'm going to talk to people that travel like myself. The unfortunate part is they travel.
Right.
So hitting schedules has been difficult.
It has been a pleasure. And if you push people to my website, that'd be great, cowboybill.com or williamleemartin.com or weeweemartin.com. And then you can click on the Facebook links there, and hopefully folks will start following that Living in the Middle report. We've gotten about 8.5 million views collectively on the reports over the last 2 years altogether. And
that's awesome.
They're a lot of fun. One of them I did on whether or not we should give guns to teachers or not. I don't know if that's a good idea or not. My point was that I think that it stopped some of the bull crap answers on why homework didn't get turned in on time. It's like the dog ate my homework. Are you sure about that, Timmy? I'd like to recant my.
I've got it right here. I was just kidding.
It's not complete.
I like that one. I might have to steal that amongst my friends.
Yeah, well, tell them all I said hello, and I got to run and get on that ship, man. So I really appreciate it.
Well, I'll put out the links with your tour coming up in September in California, and then obviously NFR.
Yeah, and I'll see you in NFR, brother.
All right, bud. I can't wait to see you again.
All right, take care.
Thanks, Bill. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.